In this video we're going to have a look at the area of a few different shapes, so rectangles, parallelograms, trapeziums and triangles, and we are going to look at where those formulas come from. Okay, so you probably already know what the area of a rectangle is. Okay, you usually do base times height. Okay, I say usually because sometimes people like to count up the squares, don't they? So they count up how many centimeters squared they might have. So here I've got 12 1 by 1 centimeters squared, or I could just do 4 centimeters multiplied by 3 centimeters, and that would give me 12 centimeters squared. Okay, and the centimeters is squared here because if I do a centimeters multiplied by a centimeters, that's repeated multiplication. So my area units are centimeters squared. Right, so let's use that to help us work out a formula for the area of a parallelogram. Okay, now if you look at this parallelogram, it's very similar to that rectangle, isn't it? I could actually, if I wanted to, I could chop off this end here, and then I could move it over here, and then it would be like this. So let me draw this new shape. So I've chopped off this end here, and I've moved it over here. So now my new shape is just this rectangle. And actually you can do that with any parallelogram. You can cut off one end and move it around to the other, and you end up with a rectangle. Okay, so actually that's why for a parallelogram your formula for the area is again base multiplied by height. But we just need to make sure that this height that we're using is perpendicular, okay, at a right angle to the base. Okay, so sometimes I'll put the height here perpendicular to the base. Okay, if they give you this length, they're trying to trick you, okay, because that's not perpendicular to this length here, is it? Okay, it's not at a right angle. Okay, so can we use that then to help us work out the area of triangles? Yes, we can. So if we have a look over here, I've actually got a little bit extra on this triangle here. Notice that a triangle is always half of a parallelogram. So if I know that the parallelogram has a formula for the area of base multiplied by height, okay, so your base there multiplied by your perpendicular height, then because a triangle's half of this, then the formula for the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2, because we've only got half of it. Okay, so if I was looking at just this triangle, the area for this one would be 3 times 4 and then divided by 2. So what's that going to be? 6 centimeters squared. Okay. Right. Moving on to the one that I really want to talk about, which is trapeziums. Now, this looks a little bit different, doesn't it? I've got one pair of parallel sides, and then 2 sides which aren't parallel. Okay. Now, what I could do if I had 2 of this shape, then I could flip one round and I could move it and I could make a parallelogram. So imagine I'm going to redraw this shape now, but I'm going to draw it flipped around and added on the end. Okay, so I'm flipping it around here. That's 2. That one was 4. There we go. So you see that shape there? So this new shape I've drawn is exactly the same as this one. I've just added it on the end and flipped it around. And now what we've made is a really big parallelogram. Now for that really big parallelogram, what would the area of that be? Well, it would be this number here plus this number here for the full base. Okay, or rather I could have said, you know, this number here plus whatever that length is there, which is the same as that one. Okay, so your base, the whole thing here, is going to be the sum of the parallel sides multiplied by the perpendicular height. So just like a parallelogram, so my base is going to be, we'll call it A plus B. So A for for that one, B for that one. That's going to give me the total base, and I want to do the total base multiplied by the perpendicular height. Okay, so I'll do all of that multiplied by the height, but I don't want the whole thing, do I? I only want half of it, so I'm going to have half of this. Okay, so let's work out the area of this trapezium that we've got for our example. So I'd do 2 plus 4, that's going to give me the total base of this shape. So that's 6, isn't it? And then I need to multiply that by the height, so the perpendicular height there is 3. Okay, again it's at a right angle. And I want to have half of this. So I'm going to be doing half of 6 times 3. So 6 times 3 makes 18. So half of 18 is 9. So that will give me 9 centimeters squared. Cool. So let's just review what we've done then. So we said that the rectangles have an area of base times height. The parallelograms also have an area of base times height. We just need to make sure that that height is perpendicular. Triangles have an area of base times height, but they're only half of a parallelogram, so we have to have half of it. And trapeziums, well, that's basically, we could make them into parallelograms too, couldn't we? But their base was the two parallel sides added together, multiplied by the height, but then we only wanted half of it. So there are your formulas. That's a little toolbox for when you have a go at some questions and you try and work out the area of some shapes.
Joash Maths.